High in the Colorado Rockies, the mountains are silent in a way that chills the bones. Cabins sit tucked in valleys and pine forests. Forgotten by time and covered in fog most of the year. Some were built for vacation, others for hiding, some for escaping the world. But when the owners left, not all spirits did. The walls remember every scream, every laugh, every secret that once filled these rooms. Doors open by themselves. Footsteps echo in empty halls. Windows fog with words written by hands no one can see. And if you sit by the fireplace, you might feel someone beside you. Breathing slow, cold, watching. Tonight, we journey into the dark corners of the Rockies, into the 20 most haunted mountain cabins in Colorado. Where the snow bites, the wind whispers, and the dead refuse to leave. Hello dear friend, welcome to a night of quiet terror. I hope you are safe, comfortable, maybe with dim lights and headphones, because tonight we explore mountain cabins in Colorado where the living fear to tread, and the dead linger long after life has left. Some cabins are abandoned, yet smells of cooking linger in the air. Some cabins creak as if someone just stepped across the floor. Some cabins echo laughter from children who have long since disappeared. And in some, visitors have reported shadowy figures at the corner of their eyes, whispering names, following them from room to room. Before we step inside, answer this in the comments. If you had to spend one night alone in a haunted cabin, would you sleep near the fireplace or in the loft under the roof where shadows move freely? Think carefully. Now, take a deep breath. The mountains are waiting. Black Pine Lodge rests quietly beneath heavy winter skies in Breckenridge. Snow drifts across the peaks, thick and muffling, settling on rooftops and pine trees alike. The lodge itself is still, smoke curling lazily from its chimney, soft light glowing through frost-coated windows. During the day it hums with life, skiers returning from slopes, fireplaces crackling, mugs clinking. But at night, when snow blankets the world and footsteps fade into silence, the lodge becomes something else. Its walls hold memory, and some say memory lingers in ways the living cannot always see. Visitors have reported seeing a woman in black wandering the halls. She appears without warning, her dress trailing lightly behind her like smoke caught in motion. Hair dark, features indistinct, shadowed by hood or veil, she moves slowly, weeping softly. The sound is barely audible, a delicate murmur carried through empty corridors, curling like mist around furniture and walls. Not a cry. Not a wail. A gentle sorrow that settles heavily in the chest of anyone who hears it. She is often seen near the lobby, pacing between the stone fireplace and wooden railing, pausing as though listening to something long gone. The floorboards groan beneath imagined weight. The fire casts shadows that flicker across walls and ceiling, dancing in time with her slow, deliberate steps. She sometimes leans on furniture, her hand hovering over polished surfaces. But when approached, she disappears. Not through a door, not around a corner, but into the wall itself. Frost spreads in the place she last stood, delicate and intricate like lace, a mark of the cold left behind by presence unseen. One winter evening, a couple staying at the lodge returned from a late walk through falling snow. The lobby was empty, the fire crackling low. As they approached the staircase, a sound reached them, a soft, sorrowful weeping. They paused, exchanging uncertain glances. A figure appeared near the railing, a woman in black. She moved slowly, her face hidden, her cries soft but filled with longing. One of them stepped forward, hoping to console or understand. The moment they did, she vanished. Where she had stood, frost lay in delicate patterns on the polished floor. The couple gasped, frozen in place, then slowly backed away, the weeping fading into the crackle of the fire. The weeping fading into the crackle of the fire. Another account comes from a lone guest arriving late in a snowstorm. The lodge was nearly deserted, corridors silent except for occasional creaks and groans of settling wood. As she carried her bags to the room, she felt a chill in the air, a cold not from snow or draft. Soft sobs echoed down the hall. She turned a corner and saw the woman in black pacing near the end of the hallway. She watched silently, breath fogging in the cold. When the guest attempted to speak, the woman vanished into the wall. Frost formed beneath her feet, spreading outward in crystalline filigree. The guest did not move until the frost melted with the warmth of the heating vents. Locals whisper of her origins. Some say she was a housekeeper long ago, who mourned a lost loved one, wandering the lodge in sorrow that could not be silenced. Others believe she was a guest, caught by an accident or illness, whose grief tethered her spirit to the halls she loved. Perhaps she waits for someone who never returned, someone who abandoned promises beneath the snow and pine. Her presence is not malicious, only heavy with longing. Imagine standing there yourself. Snow falls in wide flakes, the lodge glowing faintly through window panes. The air smells of wood smoke, pine, and something colder beneath it, a frost that bites faintly at skin. You step into the lobby, boots crunching softly on mats and floorboards. Silence stretches. You hear it then, a soft weeping, a gentle sound that does not belong to the wind. A figure appears near the staircase, moving slowly. Dark gown, hair falling like a veil. You feel the chill before you see her fully. She walks with purpose, yet weightless. Weeping just enough for you to sense grief. The air grows colder still, breath visible as you watch. Step closer, heart steady but curious, and she vanishes into the wall. Frost blossoms where she stood, sparkling faintly under lamplight like frozen lace. You step back, taking in the stillness. Only the soft crackle of the fireplace remains. Yet the memory of her movement, her sorrow, and the cold frost lingers. Black Pine Lodge is a place of beauty in winter, warm firelight and snow-covered roofs. The woman in black, weeping softly, is said to appear to anyone sensitive to the past. Her presence is marked not by anger or malice, but by sorrow. Frost remains where she stood, a delicate reminder of a spirit tethered to place. Frozen in grief yet still walking. Visitors leave the lodge in the morning with memory of her lingering in the hallways, the soft echo of sorrow in the air, and the delicate frost that melts into nothing before the day is fully bright. She waits still, wandering the halls when snow falls deep. Appearing to anyone who wanders quietly. Leaving behind only the cold trace of presence. Red Rock Cabin sits tucked among the pines and crags of Colorado Springs, where winter snow blankets the ground and distant cliffs glow red beneath early evening light. The cabin, small and weathered, stands alone on a slope where trails wind through firs and rocky outcrops. Its wood has aged dark, seems darkened by years of wind and frost. Visitors say it is beautiful in daylight, a quiet retreat surrounded by towering trees. But at night it holds a different presence. Shadows grow long across snow, and the world seems quieter than anywhere else. Some hikers tell of lanterns appearing in the windows without flame. Warm yellow glows flicker steadily, casting soft light across frosted snow. The lanterns never burn, never flicker as fire does, yet illuminate the cabin as if someone inside tends them carefully. When approached, the light remains steady, neither brightening nor dimming, as though independent of any hand. Observers feel warmth from the glow, subtle and comforting, yet tinged with something unfamiliar, something otherworldly. Breathing space. Let the cabin and snow settle in imagination. Others report more unusual experiences. A group hiking through the pines on a late winter evening. Heard laughter carried on cold wind. The sound was clear, light and melodic, unmistakably a Childa's voice. They followed toward the cabin, crunching snow beneath boots. The laughter continued, seeming to circle them, passing from tree to tree. At the door of the cabin they paused, expecting a child playing near the entrance. When the door opened, no one was there. Only footprints pressed shallowly into snow, small and perfect, leading away from the cabin and vanishing into dense woods. No echo remained. Only the whisper of wind through needles. Breathing space. Some visitors tried to call out, their voices swallowed by the stillness. Others simply watched lanterns in windows, feeling the strange comfort of light without heat. There is a consensus among those who stayed the night: the cabin is not threatening, but aware. It watches those who approach. It listens to footsteps, to breath, to laughter, and responds in subtle ways. A light flickers, shadows shift, a sound travels just beyond hearing. One man recounts arriving alone during dusk. Snow lay deep across trail, broken only by deer tracks. He reached the cabin as lanterns illuminated softly through frost-lined windows. He knocked gently. No answer, only silence. A sudden laugh, high and clear, echoed across snow. Startled, he stepped back. When he opened the door, the cabin appeared empty. The warmth from the lanterns remained, yet the footprints in snow outside had no explanation. They started near edge of porch and disappeared toward trees. He followed only a few steps before cold unease urged him back. Snow remained untouched beyond where footprints ended. Breathing space. Another visitor arrived after nightfall, lantern in hand, hoping to camp nearby. Inside, he noticed cold spots in corners of the cabin. Shadows stretched long and thin across walls, yet no wind moved them. A soft giggle came from outside, near the edge of tree lean. He opened door and saw nothing but snow. Small footprints led away, perfectly spaced, and then vanished beyond view. He closed door and watched lanterns flicker softly in windows. There was no source of fire, yet the glow remained steady, inviting, impossible. He did not stay long, leaving the cabin to the quiet, snow-laden forest. Some speculate the cabin is tied to a child who once lived in or near the area. Others believe the lanterns are echoes of past caretakers, guiding travelers through snow. Whether spirit, memory, or something older, visitors consistently report the same sensations: warmth from lanterns without flame, laughter in the snow without origin, footprints appearing only to vanish, and a sense of being watched while walking paths to or from cabin. Imagine approaching Red Rock Cabin as night deepens. The snow glows faintly under moonlight, powdered white against dark trunks. Your steps crunch and echo. The cabin sits ahead, small and still. Warm light glimmers through frost-lined windows. You feel presence in snow and trees around you. You hear faint laughter from distance, high-pitched and fleeting. You open the door, half expecting to see a child. Nothing stands there. Only lantern light, unmoving, warming corners of cabin. You step outside, noticing small footprints in snow that do not belong to anyone you know. They lead toward forest, vanish before your eyes, as though erased by unseen hands. Breathing space. The cabin communicates subtly. Lanterns, laughter, footprints, all hint at something beyond ordinary perception, yet the forest remains quiet, unthreatening. Snow continues to fall softly, muffling sound, and you feel small among pines and cliffs. The cabin stands patiently, glowing in quiet persistence. Whether guiding, observing, or playing, it draws attention to the hidden, the delicate mysteries of this remote winter landscape. Breathing space, closing gently. Red Rock Cabin is more than timber and stone. It is a place where light appears without fire. Where laughter echoes without bodies. And footprints form only to vanish. And in the quiet, the forest and cabin breathe together. Watching all who wander close enough to notice. Whispering Pines sits quietly among the dense forests of Vail, Colorado. Tall pines sway gently in evening wind, their needles brushing together with soft, constant rhythm. By day the cabins are quaint, welcoming, sunlight reflecting off wooden beams and snow-dusted roofs. Travelers arrive seeking peaceful retreats, warmth of fireplaces, and mountain air that smells of pine and frost. But when night falls, the atmosphere changes. Shadows stretch long across cabins, and the quiet hum of life seems to vanish, leaving something else behind. Guests report hearing doors slam repeatedly at night. Not once, not occasionally, but in sequences, doors opening and closing with no breeze to push them. Those sleeping nearby awaken abruptly, hearts racing, footsteps sounding in empty hallways. When they investigate, no one is there. The doors are closed, perfectly aligned, no sign of entry or exit. The air remains motionless, temperature unchanged, yet the feeling of disturbance lingers. Cold touches follow these moments. Guests speak of feeling hands brush their shoulders as they rise from bed. Or walk toward windows. Light, fleeting, yet unmistakable. Not painful or harmful, but chilling enough to raise goosebumps along arms and neck. Sometimes it feels like a presence passing by, leaning close as if to observe or guide. Then vanishing as silently as it appeared. The sensation often coincides with the slamming doors, a physical reminder that the building is not empty. Whispers add to the unease. Guests describe hearing soft voices, barely audible at first, growing louder when they pause in corridors. The sounds are human, yet fragmented, as though speech has been stretched and broken by space and time. Names are called sometimes their own, sometimes unfamiliar. The words are pleading, urgent, gentle. It feels as though the walls themselves speak, carrying the tones of voices long gone but still reaching for the living. Some hear questions, others warnings, but all describe the whispers as layered with emotion, neither cruel nor threatening, simply desperate to be acknowledged. One family staying in the largest cabin. Late at night they awoke to doors banging. Across the structure their young daughter stirred first. Saying someone touched her shoulder, both parents felt it too. A cold brush against their skin as though someone invisible passed between them. They listened intently, hearing faint murmurs echoing through the walls. Other visitors report similar phenomena. A lone traveler staying in a small cabin recalled walking to the kitchen for water. The hallway door slammed behind him. He froze, feeling cold fingertips graze his shoulder. Turning slowly, he saw nothing, yet the sensation lingered as if the air itself pressed against his skin. Then came whispers. Faint syllables, echoing from walls, fragmented and stretched. His name was spoken, gentle and deliberate. He stepped back, heart pounding, and the voices faded with the sound of doors closing silently. Some suggest the cabin preserves memory. The building may hold echoes of former guests, caretakers, or residents whose presence imprinted upon structure. Others believe spirits remain restless, seeking acknowledgement or comfort. The pattern repeats nightly: doors slam, hands brush, whispers echo. Each interaction leaves a lingering sense of life, unseen yet intimately present. It is not malevolent, but persistent, insisting the living remember they are never truly alone. Imagine walking along the corridor of Whispering Pines late at night. The air feels colder than outside, even in mild weather. You pause near a doorway, sensing movement just behind. Then a door slams softly. Your pulse quickens. You feel light pressure at your shoulder, as if someone leans close, passing warmth that is only half felt. You listen. The walls carry sound now a faint syllables, stretched and winding through space, forming the rhythm of breath. Your name is called. You do not respond, yet the voice continues, layering around you like mist. The experience is both chilling and mesmerizing. Occasionally, guests report objects shifting. Chairs moved slightly out of place, blankets drawn partially from beds, items nudged on tables. Not violently or destructive, merely signs that presence extends beyond air and sound. The building feels alive, a participant in its own story, keeping traditions of those who walked its halls long ago. Visitors are reminded through touch, sound, and movement that structures can hold memory, and memory can reach forward to brush against the living. Whispering Pines leaves lasting impressions. Some who visit once are drawn back, fascinated by the sensation of being observed and yet safe. Others leave, unsettled by the combination of slamming doors, cold touches, and whispered names. Yet all carry the memory of a building alive in quiet ways, interacting with each person uniquely, its presence persistent but subtle. By early morning, the sounds cease. Guests sleep, dreams filled with echoes of night. Daylight transforms the cabin once more. Warm light, cheerful halls, simple quiet. Only at night does Whispering Pines reveal its other side. Corridors alive with unseen motion, whispers that call, and touches from presence that cannot be seen. Visitors learn to respect this rhythm. Sit quietly. Move slowly. Listen closely. Night at Whispering Pines is a dialogue of senses and memory, of sound, touch, and silence. Each interaction is fleeting but profound. The building speaks through slamming doors, brushes shoulders, and echoes voices. It is a place where the living encounter traces of the past, a place where the unseen communicates softly yet insistently. Whispering Pines endures because of these experiences. It remains a cabin alive at night. A structure that holds more than timber and nails. And memories that breathe through walls, floors, and air. Those who listen carefully can feel it reach out. Whisper, and acknowledge their presence. It is a quiet reminder that some places never truly sleep. And the past continues to brush against the present. Timberline Cabin sits nestled deep in the forests of Estes Park, Colorado. Surrounded by towering pines and rugged trails that disappear into mountain fog. Built decades ago, the cabin has long been a retreat for those seeking solitude in the high country. Its rustic charm endures through weathered logs and stone foundation, yet most of the year it stands empty. Snow drifts around its roof in winter. Autumn leaves pile along the porch in rich, orange layers. Summer winds whistle through cracks in the walls. Silence dominates, punctuated only by the occasional call of a distant bird or rustle of wildlife nearby. Yet those who venture inside after dusk often find the quiet deceptive. The cabin carries stories, whispered among hikers, campers, and caretakers alike. It is not just the creaking of old timbers or the sigh of wind through gaps in logs. Something moves here beyond explanation. Footsteps echo upstairs, heavy and deliberate, even though the loft above collapsed decades ago. No ladder remains. No support beams stretch above. Only the memory of a room long gone, yet the sounds persist. Some who have stayed late claim they hear pacing, turning steps, the unmistakable rhythm of someone moving with purpose. Visitors describe stepping carefully over the worn wooden floor, scanning shadowed corners. The fireplace draws their attention. Stone and blackened logs hold the faint scent of old fires. Some say it is warm to the touch, though no fire burns. And some swear they have seen shapes there. Shadows that shift unnaturally, lingering in the hearth like a visitor waiting to speak. Eyes are claimed to stare from the darkness within the fireplace, tracking movement in the room. The gaze is unblinking, direct, unervingly aware of presence even when no one else stands near. One traveler, camping nearby in early fall, recounts an evening that chilled him long after he left. He entered the cabin to escape wind and drizzle. A lamp flickered low on a table, casting dim light across worn logs. The cabin seemed empty, quiet as expected. Then came the sound, soft thuds above him, footsteps pacing the non-existent loft. At first he froze, convinced it was an animal or falling debris. But the rhythm grew steady and measured, deliberate, impossible to ignore. Every step followed a cadence as though someone was circling, methodical, aware, waiting. He called out softly, expecting laughter or an answer. Nothing. Just the echo of steps, growing faint and returning. As though someone could feel his presence from above. Other visitors have stayed longer. A couple exploring the mountains arrived late in the day, intending to rest before heading back to town. They lingered by the fireplace, warming hands over residual heat. Then the shadow appeared. They noticed movement among the logs in the hearth. Something shifted, low and dark, separate from their own reflections. It remained still, watching. Eyes unseen, yet the weight of observation pressed on them. Every instinct urged flight, yet curiosity rooted them in place. When one leaned closer, it vanished, leaving only cold stone and the lingering sense of being observed. The cabin itself carries stories older than many who visit. Logs are inscribed with marks from past occupants, dates and initials etched deep into wood. Some claim these markings attract attention from whatever lingers, small signs of past life echoing into present time. The walls creak in patterns that mimic human movement. Sometimes a door swings slightly on its hinges when no wind blows. Occasionally, the faint scent of smoke rises from fireplace ashes untouched for years. All suggest a presence that has not left, a memory ingrained in the very structure of the cabin. One caretaker who checks the property during off-season recalls a night when snow covered the surrounding trails. Alone inside, he heard footsteps circling above. There was no loft, only open air where beams had collapsed. The sound grew heavy with weight, pressing down as though someone descended invisible stairs. He reported seeing a fleeting shadow in the fireplace that seemed to measure him with intent. Then dissipate before he could respond. The experience left him uneasy for weeks afterward. Careful not to linger after sunset during later visits. Occasionally, hikers note the cabin appears warmer than the surrounding forest at dusk. A subtle difference felt through cold evening air. Windows glowed dimly even without electricity. Lamplight never fully explained. The air carries faint smells of wood smoke, old timber, and earth warmed by fire long cold. These impressions heighten the sense of watching, of lingering attention. The loft may have collapsed. But something persists above, unseen yet present, pacing and circling as it has for decades. By day, Timberline Cabin seems innocent, peaceful, a relic of mountain retreat. Sunlight falls across its porch. Birds hop between logs. Dust sparkles in shafts of morning light. Visitors marvel at craftsmanship, at solitude. Nothing hints at footsteps above or shadows lingering in the hearth. But as night approaches, the forest hush deepens, and the presence awakens once more. The cabin remembers its past occupants, the rhythms of their lives, the spaces they once filled. Those who enter after dusk walk slowly, listen intently. Some hear pacing where no floor exists. Others glimpse shadows in fireplace staring directly at them, watching, waiting. Cold air presses in moments when light fades. And yet the rustic charm endures. Timberline Cabin remains a quiet retreat for the curious and the brave. A place where memory lingers, alive in sound and shape, unseen above, observing those who come near. Even as morning returns and hikers pass with laughter and daylight. The cabin waits. Empty in appearance, but full of echoes. Footsteps once walked above, shadows once observed, now rest only in memory. Ready to greet the next visitor who dares to enter. Silver Creek Cabin rests among snow-draped pines outside Aspen, Colorado, where winter settles long and deep. The creek nearby freezes solid under ice and snow, flowing silently beneath a frozen surface. Daylight turns the world bright and pristine. Snow sparkles on branches. Icicles hang from the roof of the rustic cabin, catching sun in sharp, glittering points. Yet when the sun dips behind the mountains, when twilight falls and the forest holds its breath, the frozen creek becomes a stage for sounds that cannot belong to the living. Footsteps echo across ice that should be still. Crisp, measured, deliberate. They sound close enough to follow, yet when visitors approach, they find only white snow and frozen water. Campers who stay near the cabin report these sounds most often late at night. At first faint, almost like wind brushing over ice, the footsteps grow sharper as if someone walks purposefully. The footsteps grow sharper as if someone walks purposefully. Visitors step cautiously, peering across the frozen creek. No figure appears. No footprints mark the snow. Only the echo of movement, leaving the mind uneasy with questions. The sounds fade as mysteriously as they arrive, leaving the silence of the mountains heavier than before. Inside the cabin, experiences take a more personal turn. One camper recalled a night when she lay awake in a sleeping bag by the fireplace. Outside, wind rattled branches against the walls. The cabin seemed quiet. Yet when midnight came, she felt a sudden tug on her blanket. She jerked awake, heart racing, and saw no one. The bed was empty. The room held only shadows cast by flickering firelight from the stove. Cold air brushed her skin, though the cabin remained sealed against winter frost. The sensation lingered, leaving her feeling watched and profoundly aware of something unseen. She told herself it was imagination, yet the feeling persisted. Until dawn, when the forest light crept into the cabin, dissolving unease with morning warmth. Another visitor told of hearing distinct footsteps approaching from the creekside, the crunch of snow frozen solid beneath unknown weight. He grabbed his flashlight and stepped outside. He followed the sound, slow at first, then faster, echoing across ice that should not hold life. He circled the area for minutes, shining light over every inch of creek. No one was there. Only untouched snow. Only trees swaying silently in windless night. And yet, the sound of footsteps persisted in his mind long after he returned to his cabin. Locals speak in hushed tones about the cabin and the creek. Some claim spirits linger where accidents once happened. Travelers or hunters lost to winter storms decades ago. Others believe the frozen water carries echoes of life, recording footsteps and returning them at night. No one can explain why. Only that it is a place where the natural world meets something inexplicable. A threshold between life and lingering memory. Visitors often describe the sensation of being observed. Even during daylight, the forest feels different near the creek. Shadows fall differently. A silence rests over the ice that seems heavier than normal. At night, it becomes palpable, pressing against the walls of the cabin, the edges of consciousness, as though the frozen creek itself watches. Those who hear footsteps outside report a change in perception, a heightened awareness of every sound and motion, of every leaf, every branch, every subtle movement in the snow. The cabin itself holds subtle signs of lingering presence. Doors creak despite closed latches. Floorboards groan under weight that no one bears. Items set on counters or tables appear shifted, slightly out of place, though no one entered. One hiker who returned to retrieve a lost glove swore she saw a shadow in the corner of the main room, standing near the stove, unmoving, fading when she blinked. The experience left her shaken, and she spent the remainder of the day recounting the story quietly to no one in particular. Some believe the phenomena are drawn by the quiet isolation of the place. Long winter nights, frozen creek, snow-covered woods, and cabins sealed against the wind create perfect conditions for attention to shift toward unexplained occurrences. Yet the stories persist, repeated by those who have slept in a cabin or walked along the creek late at night. Footsteps over ice, tugged blankets, shadows in corners, each experience adding to the cabina's reputation as a place where the line between living and unseen blurs. Subtle and insistent. By morning, the world returns to normal. Snow glistens, ice shines like glass under sun. And the forest hums softly with wind and bird calls. Visitors leave, carrying only memory of night. And the strange sensations they endured. Footsteps vanish from mind and creek alike. The tug on the blanket becomes story rather than event. Yet the legend remains alive, whispered to newcomers, hikers, and campers who ask what makes Silver Creek Cabin different from any other mountain retreat. If you visit, walk carefully along the frozen creek at night. Listen closely for subtle sounds across ice. Feel the cold air brush softly, notice shadows flickering across walls inside the cabin. You may hear footsteps where no one stands. You may feel a presence beside you or notice the tug of something unseen. The snow may appear untouched, yet carry weight in memory and sensation. These are the traces left by Silver Creek Cabin and the frozen creek, holding echoes of those who linger, invisible yet unmistakable, under the winter sky of Aspen. The old miner cabin in Leadville stands isolated among snow-dusted peaks and pine forests. Its timbers are weathered and darkened by decades of wind, rain, and sun. Originally built to house gold miners during the fevered rush of the late 1800s. The cabin has long since been abandoned by most, yet something lingers within its walls. The air smells faintly of old wood and damp earth, a reminder of the labor and lives that passed through this small, sturdy shelter. Though still and silent during the day, the cabin comes alive at night with stories that visitors cannot ignore. Guests who stay or pass near the cabin after dusk report strange sounds. The floorboards creak with heavy, deliberate footsteps. In the dead of night, some hear the sharp, repetitive strike of a pickaxe against stone, as if someone is working tirelessly below the wooden planks. It grows louder in moments of stillness, filling empty rooms with a presence that cannot be ignored. One man, historian exploring Leadville's mining past, stayed overnight inside the cabin. The walls were lined with soot stains and faint marks of previous tenants. As night settled over the mountains, he felt the temperature drop suddenly, cold creeping in through cracks and boards. Then he heard a faint groaning from below, rhythmic, as if a body pressed against the cabina's wooden floor. The sound grew louder, then shifted, sounding like pickaxe striking stone. It was impossible for anyone to be there. The cabin was alone. As he investigated, a figure appeared. Pale and ghostly, it clung to the walls like a shadow made flesh. Hands smudged black with coal, nails long and stained, it climbed with deliberate effort, body taut and eyes hollow. The man froze. Every instinct screamed to step back. The figure's gaze seemed to follow him, though it did not move in the way living creatures do. It was the miner who never left, a spirit bound to the cabin and the labor it once knew. With each movement, a faint scraping sound filled the air, a combination of wood and stone and something beyond comprehension. Visitors who enter the cabin often report a sense of pressure in the rooms, as if the air itself is weighted by years of toil. Some feel cold brush against their shoulders, or a fleeting touch on their arm that leaves no mark. The smell of coal and dust intensifies at night. And shadows lengthen unnaturally across floorboards, cast by nothing visible. Whispers follow footsteps. They are not words, only sounds that mimic breath and groan and the rhythm of a miner working late underground. Legends say that the miner remains because his work was never complete. Perhaps he died alone in the tunnels, perhaps his body was never recovered. The cabin is the closest link to life above, and in some way, he continues to labor as he did when alive. Pickaxes strike the floor as though a tunnel waits below, endless and dark. The walls shudder faintly under invisible pressure. Guests and explorers alike report feeling eyes upon them when they move through the main room or the narrow stairways that once led to storage and sleeping quarters. One couple visiting for a winter getaway stayed in the cabin, unaware of the stories. Around midnight, the woman awoke to the sound of scraping. She rose slowly, listening. Pickaxe strikes echoed through the floor beneath the bed. She nudged her partner, whispering that something was moving below. As he rose to investigate, a shadow passed along the wall, pale and smeared with black like soot from a tunnel fire. It climbed, paused, and seemed to regard them. Then it vanished, leaving only frost forming along the edges of the floorboards where it had stood, a faint trace of cold and presence. The old miner cabin is not always malevolent. It is not angry, only persistent, tied to the labor and life that shaped it. Those who encounter the spirit of the miner speak of awe, unease, and deep respect. There is a sense of history not written in books but etched into walls and timbers, carried in the cold air and the sound of stone struck by invisible tools. The miner is part of the cabin now, inseparable from its floorboards, walls, and roof. Imagine standing there yourself. Snow falls silently beyond the windows, covering the peaks and pines in white. The cabin is dark, interior only dimly lit by a lantern you carry. Each step on the wooden floor sounds too loud, echoing unnaturally. You pause in the main room. Silence settles like a blanket. Then, faintly, you hear a pickaxe striking stone below. A low groan follows. You feel the cold creep over your skin, prickling along your arms. Your gaze shifts to the wall, and there it is, a pale hand smeared with coal, fingers pressed against timber as if climbing. The figure does not move like a living body. It floats, tense and deliberate, climbing, pausing, watching. Then it vanishes, leaving the cold frost where it had lingered. Even as you breathe, your chest tight with the memory, the pickaxe strikes continue below, faint but steady. You leave the cabin, stepping onto snow-covered ground, but the echo follows, lingering in your mind like the rhythm of labor that never ends. The old miner cabin remains quiet in daylight, unassuming and still. But when night falls and the snow drifts thick outside, it comes alive. The miner who never left continues his work. A spirit bound to the place he loved. Or perhaps could not leave. Striking stone. Climbing walls. And reminding the living that some labors never truly end. Frost Hollow Cabin sits deep in the mountains of Winter Park, surrounded by towering pines dusted in snow. The air carries sharp cold, and the wind whispers through branches like soft voices of the forest. During the day the cabin appears ordinary, rustic and welcoming, a small haven from winter storms. Smoke rises faintly from the chimney, though the fireplace sometimes roars when no wood burns. Visitors often feel drawn inside by the warmth, the scent of pine and cold air blending into something familiar and strange. The interior is small and cozy, timber walls stretching to low rafters, windows frosted at the edges, and a stone fireplace dominating one corner. When night falls, something changes. The fire ignites with a deep glow and roaring crackle though no logs sit in the hearth. Flames lick and dance across the hearth, casting shadows that move with a life of their own. The room feels alive, and those who enter often report unease at the uncanny warmth combined with the unnatural fire. The most unsettling phenomenon occurs when visitors sit quietly or stand still. Shadows begin to shift across walls, stretching and bending. They mimic movements of people who remain entirely motionless. A hand resting on a table may have its silhouette lifted and lowered by unseen force. A visitor leaning against the wall may see shadowed reflections step forward or bow as if acknowledging another presence. Some say the shadows act independently, exploring corners of the room invisible to eyes, yet perfectly attuned to human gestures. One traveler described arriving after dark, snow crunching under boots. The door creaked open. Warmth greeted him immediately. He stepped inside and noticed the fireplace roaring, orange and white flickers dancing without smoke or wood. He moved toward the hearth and froze. Shadows along walls moved in rhythm with him, bending and stretching. When he held out his hand, the shadow mirrored it a second later, though no one else was present. He stepped back. The shadow stepped forward. When he tried to blink it out of sight, it lingered, moving with subtle curiosity. Breathing space. Another account came from a small group seeking refuge from winter storm. They spread blankets across floor, preparing for night. As wind raged outside, fireplace roared brighter, casting deep orange across timber walls. Shadows appeared, initially faint, then sharp and clear. They performed slow gestures. One shadow lifted a cup in imitation of the woman sitting at table, another raised hand like a man leaning back. Observers reported chills despite warmth from fire. They felt watched, yet not threatened. Shadows were playful, yet unsettling, reflections of presence made alive by some force they could not comprehend. Visitors also described the sounds accompanying these phenomena. The crackle of fire grows louder, uneven, almost like whispers riding the flames. Steps echo across floorboards where no one walks. Chairs scrape softly against wooden floor, though they remain in place. Occasionally a low hum fills corners of cabin, harmonizing with fireplace roar. Many claim the combination of visual and auditory anomalies forms a sense of being observed by a presence older than the cabin itself. Breathing space. Imagine standing in the center of frost-hollow cabin. Timber walls warm beneath your touch, fire roaring though hearth empty. Snow presses against window panes, muffling outside noise. Shadows stretch across walls, bending and twisting without cause. They rise and fall in rhythm with you, following hands, tilting heads, leaning as if your body commands them yet does not. Each flicker is precise, deliberate, and oddly alive. There is no threat, only awareness, a consciousness tracing movements, responding to the smallest gestures. Some visitors attempt to interact. A hand reaches toward shadow. It mirrors exactly, slow and deliberate. A foot steps backward. Shadow steps forward. A voice echoes faintly in room, though lips remain sealed. Breath catches in throat as one realizes the cabin itself is participant, responding in ways beyond physical law. Yet others leave quietly, choosing observation over engagement, feeling the presence of something both protective and inquisitive. Breathing space. Accounts suggest that the cabin's behavior is stronger during intense winter storms. The colder the night, the brighter the fireplace, the clearer the shadows. Some claim the cabin communicates in rhythm and movement, almost guiding guests through quiet reflection or introspection. Those who spend long hours inside often leave changed, more sensitive to presence, aware of subtle life hidden within walls. The cabin does not harm. It observes, interacts, and invites contemplation of boundaries between material and unseen worlds. One lone visitor recounted lingering near fireplace until midnight. Shadows performed gestures he did not make, bending and stretching over doorways and corners. He described leaning forward, and shadow across wall bent forward too, then spun slightly, moving as if curious. He tried speaking, though no answer came. Yet sense of recognition remained. When he finally stepped outside, snow silent under moonlight. He noticed footprints in cabin dust that matched none of his, leading toward door then fading entirely. Breathing space, calm closing. Frost Hollow cabin is more than timber and fire. It is space where warmth and light exist without physical cause. Where shadows move independently, reflecting the presence of those inside yet not bound to them. Visitors feel watched and mirrored, guided and observed. The fireplace roars without logs. The cabin invites both wonder and caution. A reminder that some places harbor forces beyond comprehension. If you enter Frost Hollow cabin on a quiet winter night, listen to the crackle of flames, watch shadows twist across walls, and respect the presence that lingers. Here, warmth is alive, fire is sentient. And the room itself seems to breathe with life unseen. Eagle Peak Lodge stands high above Durango, Colorado, perched against jagged cliffs that catch the first rays of sunrise and the last glow of sunset. By day it feels serene, rustic charm built into timbered walls and stone hearths, a sanctuary for hikers returning from trails winding through pine-covered peaks. The lodge welcomes travelers seeking warmth, food, and rest before nightfall. Yet when the sun dips behind the mountains and shadows stretch across decks and hallways, the atmosphere changes. Something unseen begins to stir, tracing paths long abandoned by the living. Visitors often speak first of the lanterns. They appear without hands to carry them, moving along corridors and stairways in slow arcs of pale light. The glow is soft but steady, tracing walls, reflecting off polished wooden floors and handrails. Some claim to have seen lanterns rise from empty tables or ledges, drifting as though searching for someone. Then pause at the top of stairs before slowly moving back toward darkened hallways. No wind stirs them. No reflection or mirror accounts for their motion. Only presence, a hint that the lodge is alive with memory. Hikers returning late from nearby trails sometimes spot more. They describe seeing a tall figure at the top of the main staircase, standing rigid in old climbing gear, rope coiled at waist, boots planted firmly on polished steps. He is motionless, yet unmistakable, a shoulders squared, head tilted slightly, staring directly at the ceiling beams above. His gaze seems to pass through wood and stone, tracking something far beyond human comprehension. Those who stop walking feel a subtle pressure in chest, as if weight of attention is focused on them, and the hall grows colder with every heartbeat. No one hears footsteps. No doors open or close. Only the figure remains, watching silently, waiting. Some witnesses freeze, unsure whether to call out, move closer, or retreat. After minutes, sometimes longer, he vanishes, dissolving into shadow or slipping through walls, leaving behind only the faint scent of leather and pine resin. Inside the lodge, the air itself seems attentive. Lanterns flicker as though breathing in sync with unseen movement. Lights shift in rooms long empty, reflecting patterns of someone walking through halls that no one occupies. Guests report feeling brushed by cold hands along shoulder blades, though no one is near. Sometimes soft murmurs echo from rooms overhead, like whispers of planning or caution carried through wood and stone. The lodge is both a shelter and a place of attention, where past and present brush together in subtle ways. One hiker shared his experience in detail. Returning after a late afternoon climb, he entered the main hall, boots crunching against stone hearth tiles. The room appeared empty, fire embers glowing faintly in hearth. As he adjusted his pack, a lantern hovered mid-air above sideboard, drifting along wall to opposite door, as if showing a path. Heart pounding, he followed cautiously. At top of stairs, the tall figure appeared, looking past him toward ceiling beams, motionless yet imposing. The hiker froze, feeling a chill slide across back and neck. Then, as quietly as he had appeared, The figure vanished, leaving only the soft sway of lantern as it descended slowly down stairwell, before disappearing entirely. Other visitors describe similar sightings. The lodge, especially in winter, becomes a theater of light and shadow. Lanterns float above empty tables, along railings, even between open doorways. Figures in vintage climbing gear stand briefly, watching the ceiling, the hall, or the floors below. Guests report watching from their rooms, eyes wide, unable to blink without fear of losing sight. Footsteps echo faintly when no one walks, doors move slightly as if nudged by invisible hands. Yet the experience is never threatening, only hauntingly observant, insisting the living remember the paths others once traveled. Fog and snow heighten the effect. On mountain nights when mist rolls down cliffs and drifts across decks, lanterns glow brighter, moving through fog-laden halls as though carrying their own light against gray air. Figures appear clearer in heavy moonlight, climbing gear visible in detail, ropes, carabiners, weathered coat and hat. Their attention remains fixed on the lodge itself, inspecting, acknowledging, observing. Guests say these are spirits tied to place, hikers and lodgers who return to the lodge in life, unwilling to leave its walls after death. Their movements preserve the essence of routines, paths they walked for years, memory made visible in light and shadow. Imagine walking the lodge corridors after dusk. Moonlight filters through high windows, painting boards and beams silver. Floors creak beneath your weight, yet you feel watched. You pause at top of staircase. A lantern drifts past, slow and steady, leading your eyes upward. There he stands, tall figure in climbing gear, head tilted to ceiling beams. His eyes seem to see you even if you cannot see his face clearly. A chill rides down your spine. You inhale. Exhale. He remains motionless for long heartbeat. Then vanishes as if evaporating into air. Only your own pulse marks presence in room now. Now. Room. Now. Only. Your. Own. Pulse. Marks. Presence. In. Room. Now. The lodge retains its character day and night. But at night memory and presence fill every hallway. Lanterns float without hand, figures appear in vintage gear. Eyes cast upward or past the living. The effect is mesmerizing and unsettling, drawing attention to histories embedded in walls and floors. Guests leave with stories that linger, repeating the images of hovering lanterns, silent watchers, and observation that is never threatening, only deeply attentive. Eagle Peak Lodge continues to welcome travelers in sunlight, warmth, and hospitality. Yet when moon rises above Durango peaks, shadows stir and lanterns move. Figures appear briefly at the top of staircases. And the building seems alive in quiet ways. Observers report the sensation of being noticed, watched, and gently acknowledged by presence not of this world. Those who venture inside after dark often leave with lasting impression, a lodge where memory drifts in light. Footsteps echo silently. And spirits remain vigilant, tracing paths walked for years, still tending corridors of history and shadow. Shadow Creek Cabin rests in the high forests near Keystone, Colorado, tucked between pines and jagged rock outcrops where snow lingers long into spring. Its rustic timbers stand weathered, darkened by years of wind and mountain storms. By day it appears calm and inviting, a retreat for hikers and adventurers seeking solitude. Light filters through tall windows, casting warm rectangles across rough wooden floors. The chimney holds the faint scent of long cold fires, and pine needles gather along the edges of the porch. The world here feels quiet, ordered, safe. Yet as night falls, the cabin changes. The cabin changes. A stillness descends that is heavy, anticipatory, like a held breath. It carries a presence. People speak of chains dragging across the floor in the dead of night. Not light metallic clinks, but heavy, deliberate scraping, as if some weight moves slowly through the cabin. The sound seems to come from hallways where no one walks, from rooms no longer used. Visitors awake to hear the noise start at one end of the cabin, pause, then continue toward them, like measured steps in the dark. The sound is unmistakable. No animal could make such noise. No loose object could fall in that pattern. It follows logic of intent, as if someone unseen walks the floor with purpose, dragging iron across wood. Doors creak open slowly in the dead of night. Not sudden, violent motion, but gradual, almost respectful, as though the cabin itself allows passage. Cold air rushes through these openings, brushing skin with icy fingers even when all windows are tightly closed. The gust carries faint smells of damp pine and winter frost. Guests report feeling it slide past, wrapping around them for a moment, sending a shiver through every limb. Lights flicker in lamps left on, shadows stretching long against walls, moving in ways that mimic form but never settle. The atmosphere thickens, a tension that is quiet yet inescapable. Some visitors claim something more personal, more tangible. They feel a heavy hand press against their shoulder, firm yet weightless. It does not strike, it does not lift, but it holds. Presence is undeniable. Heart rate climbs. Eyes dart across empty room. When they turn, no one stands there. Only the empty floor, silent wood, shadows dancing in corners. The sensation lingers, like a memory brushing skin, vanishing only when dawn begins to color the windows with soft light. One camper arrived on a brisk spring evening, snow still deep along trails. The cabin appeared perfect for solitude, a warm retreat after long hike. He set his pack down, lit a fire, and moved to prepare dinner. Night fell, thick and dark, muffling sounds of the forest beyond. That is when he heard it. A slow scraping sound across floorboards upstairs. At first he thought a branch had fallen on roof, but the pattern continued. Heavy, methodical, rhythmic. Step by step, drag by drag. Heart pounding, he went to investigate, flashlight in hand. He found nothing. The loft above had long since collapsed decades ago. No stairs led upward. Yet the sound continued, circling through hallways. Pausing near his door, then fading into silence. Only to return later. Another couple staying for the weekend recounted cold air rushing through closed doors. They had left a window tightly latched. In the middle of night, the door to the living area creaked open, slow and measured. Breeze swept through, extinguishing candlelight, brushing hair and skin. Then came the hand, pressing firmly on shoulder of one of them while both lay in bed. They tried to sit up, eyes wide in darkness, but the room remained empty, shadows stretching across walls. The pressure vanished slowly, leaving the skin tingling and the mind uneasy. Shadow Creek Cabin has stood for decades, surviving storms, snow, and neglect. Its walls absorb history, carrying impressions of people long gone. Every creak, every groan, every draft seems purposeful in the dead of night. Stories say the chains belong to a lost traveler, someone bound in life or memory, walking the cabin eternally. Perhaps the hand belongs to a caretaker spirit, protective, warning, or unsettled. No one knows for sure. Those who have experienced the phenomena only describe certainty that the cabin is alive in ways beyond ordinary comprehension. By day, the cabin looks welcoming. Sunlight gleams on logs. Snow melts along paths. Birds call from nearby trees. Everything appears ordinary. Footsteps are absent. Cold air retreats. Chains do not scrape. The hand does not press. Shadows retreat to corners. Yet the legend persists. Visitors who come for solitude are cautioned to remain aware. To respect the spaces, to heed the sounds that are not of the living world. Nightfall transforms Shadow Creek cabin. The forest grows silent, windows reflect black sky. Chains scrape across floorboards. Doors slowly open, cold air rushing past. Invisible hands press gently, deliberately, making themselves known. It is a place where past and present meet, where memory lingers, alive in sound and movement, waiting to be acknowledged. Those who enter after dark walk carefully, listening. Each step echoes in empty hallways. Each creak of timber might be alive. Footsteps above may follow. Shadows may linger in corners and fireplace light. The cabin watches and waits, patient as winter snow, steadfast as the mountains surrounding it. Even as dawn breaks and sunlight fills the windows, the memory of night remains. The chains, the air, the hand, all invisible but undeniably a linger in the mind, a reminder that Shadow Creek cabin is more than wood and stone. It is a keeper of presence, history, and unspoken observation, awaiting the next visitor who ventures inside. Moonlight spills across the snow-dusted peaks of Crested Butte, illuminating the dense forests and frozen streams that weave through the valley below. Tucked among pines and spruce stands a small cabin, old and weathered, its timbers dark against the pale glow of the moon. By day it appears still and peaceful, smoke curling lazily from the chimney, footprints of past visitors frozen in snow outside the door. But when night deepens and the world falls silent, the cabin transforms. The air grows colder, heavier, and something unseen stirs within its walls. Inside the cabin, by a window that faces the moonlit forest, sits a rocking chair. It is empty at first glance, pale wood worn smooth by years of use. But as the moonlight shifts, a woman appears in the chair, sitting perfectly still. Her hair hangs loosely, catching the silver light in faint strands. Her eyes are hollow, deep and empty, yet somehow they seem to watch everything in the room. She rocks slowly back and forth, a motion gentle yet unending, a rhythm that seems to match the slow pulse of the night itself. Visitors who enter the cabin speak of the sensation of presence before they even see her. The air grows cooler, the shadows deeper. The rocking chair creaks softly, even when no one is near. Then, from the corner of a room or the edge of a hallway, she becomes visible, as if born from the moonlight itself. Her rocking continues silently, back and forth, like a lullaby sung without sound. Some swear they feel her gaze, even though her hollow eyes hold nothing but night. One traveler, staying at the cabin during a winter storm, noticed the chair moving before he fully entered the room. The wind howled outside, snow striking the windows, and the cabina's timbers groaned under frost and cold. As he stepped inside, the rocking slowed to a pause, yet the figure remained. Her eyes met his, hollow and unwavering. He tried to approach slowly, unsure whether to speak, to touch, or to flee. The moment he crossed the threshold, she vanished. Not into a shadow or around the room, but into nothing. Leaving only the chair rocking slightly as if the weight had never left it. Another story tells of a couple exploring the cabin during a quiet evening. The moon was high, silver light spilling across the floor and casting long shadows of furniture against rough timber walls. She saw her from the doorway, a woman, silent and still, rocking gently by the window. Her presence filled the room without sound, a heavy hush that pressed on the chest and slowed the heart. The couple stepped forward, but when they did, she vanished. Only the chair continued its motion, creaking softly as if reminding them she had been there moments before. Some believe she is the spirit of a woman who once lived in the cabin. A long life marked by quiet solitude and deep sorrow. Others say she waits for someone who never returned. A loved one lost to the snow and mountains. Her hollow eyes are said to reflect longing so profound that any who meet her gaze feel the weight of it pressing silently on their own hearts. She is not malicious, only bound to the place she loved. Her rocking chair a tether to the past that cannot be severed. Imagine standing there yourself. The cabin is quiet, the wind outside softened by snow. The cabin is quiet, the wind outside softened by snow. The wind outside softened by snow. The cabin is quiet, the wind outside softened by snow. The wind outside softened by snow. The wind outside softened by snow. Then she vanishes. Not gradually, not into another room, but simply disappears, leaving behind only the chair, still moving slightly. A faint creak echoing in the cold air. The moment passes. Yet the memory lingers. Every shadow in the cabin seems longer. Every sound sharper. Even the snow outside feels heavier. Silent with attention. The moonlit cabin holds the story of her stillness, of a life once lived and a presence that remains tied to the room. Visitors report feeling eyes upon them when they cross the threshold, footsteps that do not exist, and a sudden chill when the moonlight strikes just right. Visitors report feeling eyes upon them when they cross the threshold, footsteps that do not exist, and a sudden chill when the moonlight strikes just right. Visitors report feeling eyes upon them when they cross the threshold, footsteps that do not exist, and a sudden chill when the moonlight strikes just right. The rocking chair rocks alone sometimes, long after any living person has left, carrying with it the weight of the woman who sits there in memory and spirit. The rocking chair rocks alone sometimes, long after any living person has left, carrying with it the weight of the woman who sits there in memory and spirit. The cabin itself seems to breathe with her presence, timber and stone humming with quiet energy. She is part of the place now, a figure shaped from moonlight and longing, tethered to the chair that rocks endlessly by the window. Any who enter must tread lightly, aware that the air itself is filled with her sorrow, her patience, and her silence. And so, when the moon rises over Crested Butte, the moonlit cabin waits. Its walls echo with the memory of a woman who rocks in place, eyes hollow. Eyes hollow, back and forth, caught between worlds. Approach, and she vanishes, leaving only the chair moving softly. A whisper of motion, a trace of presence. And the quiet reminder that some spirits linger where they loved most. Lone Pine Cabin sits high in the snow-draped forests of Breckenridge, Colorado, where pine trees stretch tall and wind whispers over steep ridges. Trails vanish beneath fresh snowfall, and the mountains hold quiet like a suspended breath. Daylight casts long shadows across the drifts, but when evening comes, the snow takes on a strange quality. It moves differently around the cabin, swirling against walls in ways that seem alive, bending with unseen currents, brushing across logs without wind. Visitors describe feeling watched, though no eyes appear. The air is heavier near the forest edge, each exhale visible in the cold, curling like smoke. It is here that many claim to see a figure standing among the trees, tall and still, waving silently as though greeting someone unseen. The figure does not speak. It does not move except to gesture toward the cabin or toward the snowed path. When approached, the man vanishes, dissolving into the woods. Yet footprints remain in snow, a perfect, deep impressions that lead into nothing, disappearing into trees where no one could walk. Breathing space. Let the snow and stillness settle. One visitor arrived during twilight, trudging through knee-deep snow toward the cabin. The sky faded from orange to violet. As he neared, movement caught his eye, a man in dark coat standing among pines, hand raised in quiet wave. Heart quickening, he stepped forward, calling softly. The figure remained, waving calmly, silent. A moment later, when he stepped onto snow nearer the tree line, the man was gone. Footprints, however, led from where the figure had stood, stretching back into the forest and vanishing. No branch was broken, no trail continued. Only the snow remained. Perfect. And untouched. Beyond that point. The snow around the cabin is said to behave unnaturally. It drifts in patterns that seem deliberate, swirling in circles around logs and porches. It gathers near windows and doors as though forming barriers, yet opens easily when approached. Some visitors feel as if the snowfall guides them, nudges them towards certain areas, or warns them of unseen presence in the woods. The combination of drifting snow and silent figure creates a sensation that the cabin and surrounding forest are alive, watching, waiting. Breathing space. Another hiker recounted arriving at night during a storm. Snow fell thick, muffling sound. Lanterns inside the cabin cast warm yellow glow on frosted windows. Outside, the forest shimmered in white. The man appeared suddenly, standing among trees near the cabin. He waved calmly, long fingers visible against snow. The hiker froze. Every instinct urged caution. The figure did not move closer, only stood as if aware of being observed. When the hiker stepped toward the door, the man was gone. Yet footprints led from near edge of woods to a small clearing, disappearing where no one could have walked. Visitors describe feeling a tension between curiosity and caution. The figure seems aware, intelligent, almost playful. He waves, waits, then disappears, leaving only evidence of presence behind. No sound accompanies his movement, yet the footprints suggest solid weight. People report seeing the snow swirl in unnatural patterns as if currents respond to the figure's motion. Shadows stretch oddly under lantern light, shifting independently of trees or cabin structure. Even the wind, usually harsh in these mountains, falls silent in the presence of the figure. Breathing space. Imagine standing near lone pine cabin as night falls. Snow crunches beneath boots. Smoke drifts from chimney. Forest stretches endless around you, dark and silent. The sky is deep blue, moonlight glancing across snowdrifts. You notice a dark shape among trees. It waves, slow and deliberate, a human form standing still. You take a step toward it. It does not move except to gesture. Silence presses in. The figure fades from view. You approach where he stood. Footprints mark the snow, leading into forest before vanishing entirely. No explanation remains. Only swirling snow, untouched cabin, and the memory of presence. Some believe the figure is the ghost of someone who once lived near the cabin, perhaps a caretaker or traveler lost in snow long ago. Others suggest the man is a manifestation of the forest itself, an entity tied to the snow and isolation of the mountains. Whatever the explanation, those who encounter him describe the experience as humbling, a reminder of forces beyond understanding, subtle and deliberate, neither threatening nor cruel. Breathing space. Over years, hikers and skiers continue to report the same phenomena. Footprints that lead to nowhere. Snow drifting unnaturally around logs and windows. A figure standing silently among trees, waving before disappearing. Those who return from winter storms tell similar stories, each more vivid than the last. They speak of quiet presence, cold air brushing faces, and the strange rhythm of snow swirling around the cabin as if in dialogue. Lone Pine Cabin stands amid mountains and drifting snow, quiet and watchful. The forest, the snow, and the cabin itself seem connected, responding to human presence. And to unseen visitor who stands among trees. Footprints appear where no one walks. Snow moves against wind. A man waves silently, then vanishes. Travelers leave changed, aware of something alive in the mountains. A presence that watches and waits, tied to snow, wood, and wilderness. In winter nights, when snow swirls and lanterns glow, the cabin is more than shelter. It is a threshold between ordinary world and something beyond, where every footprint, every shadow, and every wave of hand tells a story. Where every footprint, every shadow, and every wave of hand tells a story that begins and ends in the drifting white silence of Lone Pine Cabin. Glacier View Cabin sits tucked into the forests above Steamboat Springs, surrounded by towering pines and distant snow-capped peaks. By day, the cabin looks inviting, sunlight spilling across timber walls, smoke curling from stone chimney, and crisp mountain air carrying the scent of pine and earth. Hikers and skiers alike retreat here for warmth and quiet, drawn by views of the valley below. But when night falls, the cabin seems to awaken in ways that are impossible to explain. Visitors often notice the windows first. As the evening air cools, moisture collects on glass, fogging panes with icy breath. At first, it appears natural, nothing unusual. Yet soon patterns emerge, words traced against condensation. Letters slowly form, "Leave now." No one inside touches the glass, yet the words appear clear, deliberate, demanding attention. Some guests report the letters growing, spreading across entire window panes in faint, misted script, as if the cabin itself communicates a warning. The feeling inside the cabin intensifies. Guests often describe the sensation of someone standing close, just behind them. A breath on the nape of the neck, cold and insistent, sending a shiver through the spine. When they turn, no one is there. Yet the sense of presence remains, weightless but undeniable, like air displaced by something invisible. The room feels charged, every shadow seeming to lean closer, every creak of timber amplified by quiet. One visitor recounted sitting by the fireplace late one winter night. Steam gathered on the windows, swirling in natural patterns. Then letters began to form, precise and urgent. He froze, staring at the words, heart quickening. A second later, he felt it, the brush of cold air against the back of his neck. Instinctively, he whipped around. Only the cabin, dark and still. Yet he could feel the presence, inches behind, patient and watchful. Others have experienced similar phenomena. A couple staying over the holidays reported waking to fogged windows. The words repeated across multiple panes. They felt a persistent pressure behind them as they moved through the cabin. Shoulders tingling with cold. The air seemed to pulse with unseen movement. When they tried to speak aloud, voices barely formed. Swallowed by silence. The letters remained, commanding and precise. Leave now. The effect is not limited to one area. Guests have noted doors opening and closing softly in empty rooms. Floorboards creak under weight that is not there. Small objects appear shifted, towels or books slightly displaced as though someone walked through without making a sound. Nothing is aggressive, but everything suggests awareness, a quiet insistence that the living recognize the boundaries of this place. The cabin seems alive with memory, retaining echoes of those who came before. And insisting that the living tread lightly. Fog outside, snow drifting silently across the mountains. Seems to amplify the sensation. The cold seeping in from windows carries a quiet note of warning. Some describe footsteps outside, soft on the deck or among the pines, though no human presence is visible. Others hear faint whispers when sitting still, voices too faint to identify yet unmistakably deliberate. Names may be carried, questions asked, or warnings given. Every sound seems to originate just beyond comprehension, as though the mountain air itself carries the message. Imagine standing alone in the cabin late at night. Moonlight filters through frosted panes, casting soft silver shadows across timber walls. The fireplace emits a warm glow, yet the chill of presence lingers. Moonlight filters through frosted panes, casting soft silver shadows across timber walls. The fireplace emits a warm glow, yet the chill of presence lingers. The window fogs, swirling in natural patterns, until letters begin to form. Moonlight filters through frosted panes, casting soft silver shadows across timber walls. The fireplace emits a warm glow, yet the chill of presence lingers. The window fogs, swirling in natural patterns, until letters begin to form. You read, leave now. Moonlight filters through frosted panes, casting soft silver shadows across timber walls. The fireplace emits a warm glow, yet the chill of presence lingers. The window fogs, swirling in natural patterns, until letters begin to form. You read, leave now. A breath brushes your shoulder. Moonlight filters through frosted panes, casting soft silver shadows across timber walls. The fireplace emits a warm glow, yet the chill of presence lingers. The window fogs, swirling in natural patterns, until letters begin to form. You read, leave now. A breath brushes your shoulder. You spin, heart racing. Moonlight filters through frosted panes, casting soft silver shadows across timber walls. The fireplace emits a warm glow, yet the chill of presence lingers. The window fogs, swirling in natural patterns, until letters begin to form. You read, leave now. A breath brushes your shoulder. You spin, heart racing. Empty room. Moonlight filters through frosted panes, casting soft silver shadows across timber walls. The fireplace emits a warm glow, yet the chill of presence lingers. The window fogs, swirling in natural patterns, until letters begin to form. You read, leave now. A breath brushes your shoulder. You spin, heart racing. Empty room. But the feeling remains, as if invisible eyes watch every movement, judging, reminding you of limits and boundaries. Some visitors leave immediately when the messages appear. Others remain, drawn by curiosity, tension, or disbelief. Those who linger often report prolonged sensations, the air growing heavier, shadows seeming to stretch longer than light allows, sounds magnified in quiet spaces. Steps of unseen feet echo across floors, a rhythm matching heartbeat. Every corner, every stair, every room feels watched, charged, aware. The cabin preserves its charm by day. Sunlight warms floors and windows, snow drifts untouched along decks. Laughter and conversation of families, hikers, or skiers fill the air, masking the latent energy that waits until darkness. But night transforms the space. Fog gathers on glass. Letters appear. Breath is felt. Whispers drift from walls, soft and pleading. The lodge becomes a threshold, a place where the past brushes against the present, urging caution. Glacier View Cabin remains an enduring mystery. Guests leave with stories they cannot fully explain. They remember the chill at the back of the neck, the quiet insistence in shadows, and the presence that is close yet unseen. The mountain air retains memory, the timber holds echoes, and the night extends beyond simple darkness into something sentient. Visitors learn to respect the rhythm of this place. Move slowly. Observe quietly. Acknowledge presence without provocation. Sit by the fireplace. Watch the window's fog. Read the letters. Feel the breath at your shoulder. Understand that Glacier View Cabin is more than wood and stone. It is a living archive of memory, boundary, and warning. And when the letters appear, and the cold air brushes your neck, the message is clear: leave now, or stay with full awareness that something unseen lingers, waiting, patient, and aware. Timber Ridge Cabin sits high above the valleys of Telluride, Colorado, nestled among towering pines and rugged mountain slopes. Its timbered walls and stone chimney give it the appearance of a cozy retreat, a place where hikers and travelers might seek refuge from the cold, or spend quiet days in nature. By daylight, the cabin looks serene. Sunlight glints off frost in winter, and during summer, golden rays warm the worn wooden floors. The air smells of pine and aged timber, a scent both comforting and grounding. Visitors often linger on the porch, listening to wind rustle through branches, watching distant peaks shimmer in the afternoon light. But when night falls, Timber Ridge Cabin takes on a different character. The silence grows heavy and deliberate, as though the walls themselves hold their breath. Visitors report hearing creaks and groans from floors above or below, slow and measured, like footsteps pacing steadily across the cabin. The sound moves through the rooms in rhythms that suggest presence, even when no one is inside. Floors shift beneath imagined weight. Shadows stretch and contract, dancing in the corners of dimly lit spaces. There is no one to cast them, yet they appear undeniably real. One traveler arrived late in winter, tired from a long hike. The cabin welcomed him with the warmth of a fire left smoldering in the hearth and a faint smell of pine smoke lingering in the air. He lay down to rest, exhausted, but before sleep could claim him, he heard the soft, deliberate creak of floorboards above. Step by step, slow and steady, pacing, moving in a loop across the loft where no one could be. At first he thought his mind played tricks, the fatigue causing hallucinations. Yet the sound persisted. Each step echoed distinctly, circling and retracing, unrelenting. Listening until dawn. When morning light finally dissolved the tension. And the house returned to ordinary silence. Other visitors describe waking to find the cabin altered in small, unnerving ways. Chairs turned over in empty rooms. Blankets pulled from beds that had been neatly arranged. Doors locked before sleep left ajar, swinging slightly as though someone had passed through. No footprints beyond the natural wear of the cabin. And yet the sense of another presence, watching, is undeniable. A family staying during the summer noticed these changes firsthand. After a quiet evening by the fire, they retired for the night. Hours later, a child awoke crying, claiming someone touched her blanket. Her parents found the covers tossed aside and the bedroom door slightly open, though they had secured it tightly. The parents searched the cabin from floor to floor. The house was empty. Every door and window locked. The air still except for faint creaks that seemed to echo from nowhere. They returned to their rooms with unease. Finding the blankets quietly repositioned. In the morning. As though the disturbance had been fleeting yet intentional. Locals have their own theories about Timber Ridge Cabin. Some say it carries the memory of those who once lived or passed through, imprinting themselves on the structure itself. Others believe the cabin is connected to the mountain spirits, the wind and forest acting as conduits for presence not bound by flesh. Those who spend nights here report the same phenomena, whether aware of the legends or not. Footsteps pacing empty rooms. Chairs moved. Blankets disturbed. Doors unlocked. Despite the unsettling experiences, the cabin retains its charm. Daylight restores a sense of safety and calm. The mountains gleam. The mountains gleam. Birds call. The mountains gleam. Birds call. Pine needles shimmer with dew. The mountains gleam. Birds call. Pine needles shimmer with dew. The firewood smells rich and familiar. The mountains gleam. Birds call. Pine needles shimmer with dew. The firewood smells rich and familiar. Even after nights filled with sounds and shadows, visitors often describe a feeling of awe, a quiet reverence for the unknown. The mountains gleam. Birds call. Pine needles shimmer with dew. The firewood smells rich and familiar. Even after nights filled with sounds and shadows, visitors often describe a feeling of awe, a quiet reverence for the unknown. Timber Ridge Cabin holds history in every beam and plank, a history that continues to reach outward into the present. Even in summer, when the sun is high and warmth permeates every corner, a visitor can sense it. The floorboards groaning slightly beneath imagined weight. The faint impression of pacing in the loft, the subtle sway of a chair in an empty room. These moments are fleeting but unforgettable, leaving a sense of quiet awareness that something watches, yet does not harm. Travelers who stay multiple nights often speak of timing, noting that sounds and disturbances seem to follow patterns, appearing late at night, fading with first light. The cabin is patient. It waits. It continues to play its subtle, mysterious rhythm, inviting those who sleep there to notice the presence, to experience its quiet message that the ordinary world contains more than can be seen. Timber Ridge Cabin is more than wood, stone, and nails. It is memory made tangible. Its floors creak not from age alone but from echoes of life that linger. Its chairs and blankets move not randomly but as if part of an unseen rhythm. Visitors hear it, feel it, experience it, and return to the day changed by the knowledge that some spaces in the mountains are alive in ways unseen. As sunlight returns and mountain winds scatter pine needles across the porch, the cabin sits quietly once more. The floors are still. Chairs upright. Blankets neatly folded. Yet within the walls, within the timber and stone, the rhythm continues. Shadows wait in corners. Timber Ridge Cabin endures, a place where the ordinary intersects with the extraordinary, and where every visitor leaves carrying the echo of unseen presence that walks with them long after they depart. Snowfall Cabin sits nestled deep in the Aspen Mountains. During the day, sunlight glints off icy branches, and smoke curls lazily from the chimney. The cabin is charming, rustic, and quiet, a refuge for hikers and skiers seeking solitude. Yet when night falls and the world beyond the forest fades into darkness, the cabin takes on a different presence. Shadows grow longer, the air grows colder, and the stillness carries something unseen. Visitors have reported seeing a young girl moving along the loft. Her dress is light, flowing as she runs, but her feet never seem to touch the wooden floor. She glides across the space with unnatural grace, moving faster than the eye can follow. Her laughter is high-pitched, ringing, almost musical, yet hollow, carrying an edge that is both joyful and unsettling. The sound fills the cabin, echoing from beams to rafters. Yet no source can be found. Those who attempt to approach her quickly learn that she is not a child of the living. Call her name softly, ask her to stop or turn, and she disappears. Not behind a door or into a corner, but into the walls themselves. The air chills in the space she left, and a faint sensation of movement seems to linger where she vanished. Some say the temperature drops slightly, their breath visible as if the cold has followed her path. One guest, staying alone for a weekend retreat, first noticed the presence late in the evening. Snow fell steadily outside, muffling the world beyond the cabin. He heard a soft giggle from above, followed by the sound of running across the loft floor. Curious and cautious, he climbed the stairs to investigate. As he reached the loft, the girl appeared, her motion rapid and light. He reached out, voice trembling as he called her name. She paused for the briefest of moments, seeming to regard him with hollow eyes. Another family visiting for a winter holiday. The cabin was warm with firelight and laughter of their own, yet shadows seemed to move independently along the walls. From the loft came quick, rhythmic running sounds, followed by bursts of high-pitched laughter. The children looked up to see her for a moment, suspended above the floor, hair swinging, dress flowing. Their parents called to her gently, and instantly, she disappeared, leaving a subtle draft and a feeling of presence that remained long after. Legends speak of her origins. Some believe she was a child who lived in a cabin long ago, lost tragically to the mountains in a winter storm. Others suggest she is a spirit born from joy and curiosity, unable or unwilling to leave the place where she played so freely. Regardless of the truth, her presence is unmistakable to those who encounter it. She is not malevolent, only tethered to the cabin by memory and energy, bound to the loft where she once moved in life. Imagine standing there yourself. Snow falls in thick flakes outside, muffling the world beyond the windows. The fire crackles, casting flickering light across timber walls. You hear laughter from above, light and musical, bouncing from rafters to floorboards. Your eyes follow the motion, and there she is, a girl suspended slightly above the loft floor, gliding forward and back with effortless grace. You hesitate, unsure whether to move closer or call out. Her laughter continues, ringing through the cabin, sweet and eerie. Step forward. She pauses briefly as if noticing, her hollow eyes meeting yours. You call softly, asking her to stop or turn, and in that instant, she disappears. The loft feels colder now, the air shifting slightly where she once floated. A faint echo of her laughter remains, carrying in corners and rafters. You are left with silence, broken only by the crackle of fire and the muffled sound of snow falling outside. Snowfall Cabin retains both warmth and mystery. By day, it is a peaceful retreat, a place for rest and reflection. By night, it is alive with memory, motion, and the unseen. The girl in the loft appears to those sensitive to presence, moving with joy and grace, laughter ringing through the air, yet always out of reach. She vanishes when approached, leaving only the memory of her motion and the chill of her passing. Those who stay at Snowfall Cabin long remember her. They speak quietly of high-pitched laughter, fleeting movement above their heads, and a feeling of being watched with curiosity rather than malice. The loft becomes her domain, a place where she can play endlessly. Floating above the floor, suspended between the world of the living and the memory of the past. Those who stay at Snowfall Cabin long remember her. If you ever visit Snowfall Cabin, listen closely as night falls. Watch the loft for movement, for laughter that echoes without a source. Call gently, if you dare, but know that she may vanish at the sound of your voice, leaving only the stillness of the room, the soft warmth of firelight, and the memory of a girl who runs forever above the floor. High-pitched laughter ringing through the moonlit cabin. Cedarwood Cabin sits nestled deep within Vale Valley, surrounded by thick forests of pine and fir that sway gently in the mountain wind. By day the cabin appears serene, smoke curling lazily from the stone chimney, sunlight reflecting off timber walls and frost-dusted rooftops. Hikers and skiers often stop here seeking warmth, rest, and the quiet comfort of wood and stone. But when night falls, the cabin takes on a different presence, one that feels both alive and watchful. Visitors report first noticing the figure near the stacks of firewood just outside the cabin. A man, tall and broad, dressed in old lumberjack clothing, stands silently among the logs. His coat is thick and worn, trousers tucked into boots dusted with snow. He does not move, does not speak, only observes quietly. Those who encounter him often blink. And in that instant he disappears. Not slowly, not retreating down the path, but vanishing entirely as if he was never there. Yet the smell lingers, a wet wood, sap, smoky, a rich and earthy, as though the forest itself has exhaled the scent of labor and life. It is a presence both tangible and intangible, leaving witnesses unsettled yet mesmerized. One hiker described walking past the stacked logs after a long day on the trails. The sun had set behind distant peaks, and the first stars were barely visible. The air was crisp and carried the scent of pine and melted snow. Out of the corner of his eye, he saw the figure standing still, motionless as a carved statue. He froze, heart racing, unsure whether to move or call out. When he turned fully to face the man, he blinked. Yet the rich aroma of wet timber lingered strongly, filling his lungs and leaving him breathless. Others have reported similar experiences. Guests at the cabin have woken to find the man standing by the woodpile outside their window, eyes fixed on them through frosted glass. His presence is never threatening, yet it carries weight, a silent reminder of something persistent and enduring. When they step outside, he is gone, leaving only the faint smell of cut and wet wood. Some describe the sensation of being watched even when alone, a quiet attention that is neither hostile nor friendly, but undeniable. Inside the cabin, subtle signs accompany the sightings. Logs sometimes shift slightly overnight, not enough to suggest human interference, but enough to make one question whether the forest and the cabin themselves are alive. The fire crackles as if responding to unseen breath. The air grows heavier in corners of rooms, and guests feel inexplicable awareness. As though the history of labor and presence is imprinted in every timber. Fog and snow enhance the mystery. On nights when mist drifts through trees, the figure appears more solid against low light. The blackness of his eyes contrasts sharply with the pale snow, and his soot-stained hands seem to emerge from shadow. Witnesses report the figure standing longer during these nights, watching, observing, until they retreat indoors. Then he vanishes as before, leaving only scent and memory behind. Imagine walking through the forest at dusk, snow crunching underfoot, the wind whispering through pine branches. You approach the cabin, the glow of firelight visible through windows. You notice a figure. Black eyes, soot-covered hands, sturdy boots dusted in snow. He blinks. And he is gone. Only the smell of wet timber fills the air, rich and lingering, as though the forest itself has exhaled in his absence. The figure does not appear malicious, nor does he seem to demand attention. Instead, he exists as a reminder of the land and the labor it has seen. The smell of wet wood and sap ties him to the physical world even as he vanishes from sight. Guests often describe a mix of fear, awe, and curiosity, an understanding that some presences are not meant to be challenged, only observed and respected. Cedarwood Cabin carries history not written in books but etched into the walls, logs, and surrounding forest. The man in lumberjack clothing is a living memory, a guardian of labor and mountain solitude. Each night, he appears briefly to mark the presence of those who came before, leaving traces in scent and shadow. Visitors leave with stories of a figure who is there and not there, a presence defined by black eyes, soot-stained hands, and the enduring aroma of wet wood. The forest, the cabin, and the figure exist together in quiet balance. To encounter him is to witness the persistence of memory in physical form. He is a part of the cabin as much as logs and beams. A silent guardian of history and solitude. Guests often return with lingering awareness of his presence, carrying the scent of wet timber in memory long after they have left. Cedarwood Cabin endures as both shelter and testament, a place where the past is never truly gone. At night, the figure appears, watching, observing, leaving traces in scent and subtle movement. He reminds those who wander close that some histories are living, waiting quietly in the shadows. To witness him is to step briefly into that continuum, to feel the weight of labor, memory, and presence intertwined with the mountain air, pine, and the enduring stillness of Vale Valley. The moon hangs low over Summit County, casting a pale, silvery light across the still waters of Crystal Lake. The surface gleams like glass, reflecting the shadows of tall pine trees that line the shore. The air is crisp and carries the scent of pine and damp earth. Visitors to the Crystal Lake Cabin often speak of the tranquility that surrounds the area. The lake seems to hold its breath, as if waiting for something unseen to emerge from its depths. On nights like this, the lake seems to hold its breath, as if waiting for something unseen to emerge from its depths. The air is crisp and carries the scent of pine and damp earth. Visitors to the Crystal Lake cabin often speak of the tranquility that surrounds the area. The lake seems to hold its breath, as if waiting for something unseen to emerge from its depths. On nights like this, the lake seems to hold its breath, as if waiting for something unseen to emerge from its depths. The gentle lapping of water against the shore provides a soothing rhythm, and the stars above shimmer in a way that makes the night feel alive. The stars above shimmer in a way that makes the night feel alive. For all its beauty, there is an undeniable tension that lingers in the air, subtle but persistent. Many guests have shared stories of strange figures that appear on the lake at night. The first time someone notices these shapes, it is often difficult to make sense of them. The water is calm, and yet, shadows seem to move across the surface as if walking upon it. Figures glide slowly, almost deliberately, leaving no ripples behind. Those who have seen them speak of a surreal, dreamlike quality, a sensation that defies logic and explanation. One evening, a couple arrived at the cabin seeking a quiet retreat. The sun had set hours before, leaving the lake bathed in the soft glow of the moon. They settled near the pier, enjoying the stillness, when a figure appeared at the water's edge. At first, it seemed like a reflection, but as they watched, it became clear that it was a person. The figure waved slowly, a deliberate motion, before sinking beneath the water. There was no splash, no disturbance, just a seamless disappearance into the darkness. The lake remained calm, serene, yet impossibly strange. They would later recount the incident to friends and family, each word spoken with the awe and fear of someone who has glimpsed the inexplicable. Over the years, others have arrived at the cabin with stories of similar encounters. Guests speak of distant figures walking on water, moving slowly toward the shore before fading into the night. Some claim to hear whispers carried on the wind, unintelligible but distinctly human. The pier becomes a focal point for these sightings, as if it is a threshold between the ordinary and something beyond comprehension. They speak of the lake as if it possesses a consciousness of its own. A place where reality bends and the impossible becomes tangible. Unwilling to test the boundary between what is seen and what is known. Standing silently on the edge of the water, observing the events that unfold under the moonlight. The atmosphere of the lake is unlike any other. Many choose to leave before nightfall, unwilling to test the boundary between what is seen and what is known. A place where reality bends and the impossible becomes tangible. The cabin itself remains a solitary witness, standing silently on the edge of the water, observing the events that unfold under the moonlight. A sense of impending doom and madness. The atmosphere of the lake is unlike any other. Shadows seem to gather just beyond the reach of the moon's light, and the reflection of the sky on the water creates a mirror world that feels both inviting and menacing. It is a quiet, patient presence, one that never intrudes but makes itself known through subtle signs and inexplicable movements. One night, a small group of friends camped near the shore, enjoying the cool air and the stillness of the lake. They noticed a figure standing at the end of the pier, facing them with an eerie calm. They waved, expecting the gesture to be returned. And to their astonishment, the figure mirrored their motion. Then, as silently as it appeared, it sank into the darkness, leaving no mark on the water. The friends stared in disbelief, the weight of the moment pressing down on them, as if the lake itself had swallowed a secret that they were never meant to uncover. The stories of Crystal Lake Cabin continue to draw curious visitors, those who seek the beauty of the wilderness and the thrill of the unknown. Photographs capture the stillness of the water, but cannot contain the strangeness that comes alive at night. The pier remains empty, yet it feels full of stories, each one etched into the shadows and ripples of the lake. Even as the sun rises over Summit County, the memory of the night lingers. The lake returns to its calm, mirror-like state, reflecting the clouds and trees with perfect clarity. The figures are gone, leaving only a faint sense of wonder and unease behind. It is a place where nature and mystery intertwine, where the line between reality and the unexplained is blurred. And where every visitor leaves with a story they cannot fully explain. Crystal Lake Cabin remains, timeless and watchful. The water continues to shimmer under the moon. The pier standing silent. Those who encounter the lake at night feel a mixture of awe and fear. A reminder that some places in the world resist understanding. And so, the legends persist, whispered among those who have seen what lies on the water. A haunting and beautiful testament to the mysteries that dwell in the quiet corners of the natural world. The lake waits, patient and unchanging. Reflecting the light of the moon. And the shadow of those who pass across its surface. Every wave, every ripple carries a story. Every night a new chapter in the enigmatic life of Crystal Lake Cabin. Dark Hollow Cabin sits deep in the pine forests outside Silverthorne, Colorado, where the mountains rise steep and cold, their peaks often hidden by fog. The cabin is small, rustic, and weathered, with dark timber walls and a stone chimney that reaches upward like a finger pointing toward the sky. By day, it seems harmless, nestled among snow-laden pines and mossy rocks, a retreat for hikers and travelers seeking solitude. Light filters through windows, casting warm rectangles across the floor. Outside, the wind rustles branches and the distant creek murmurs over stones. But when night falls, the cabin changes. A heavy quiet settles over the forest, muffling every sound except the occasional crack of distant wood. Inside, the atmosphere becomes thick and intimate, as if the cabin itself leans closer to watch and listen. Guests often report strange sensations, subtle at first. A chill brushing the back of the neck. Shadows lingering too long in corners. And then the whispers begin. Visitors describe hearing words spoken softly, barely audible, yet unmistakably their own. Secrets, thoughts, confessions they had never shared, rise in hushed tones from walls or corners. The sound is human, familiar, intimate. It is never loud or harsh, but it penetrates the mind in ways that make the listener pause, frozen by the realization that their own private thoughts are known. Even when completely alone, the whispers continue, circling the room as though carried on breath unseen. One traveler arrived in winter, snow thick around the cabin. She settled into the small loft bedroom, exhausted from a long hike. At first, the cabin seemed ordinary, warm from a fire in the stone hearth, quiet except for wind brushing through cracks in logs. Then she heard her name, spoken softly, almost reverently. She froze. The voice continued, uttering her private worries and fears, things she had never shared aloud. Her heart raced. She looked around, finding only shadows cast by flickering firelight. And then, she felt the pressure of weight on the edge of the bed, beside her. Not threatening, not violent, but impossible to ignore. Something invisible had taken a seat next to her, close enough that the warmth pressed faintly against her side. She dared not move. And when morning came, the presence was gone. Another guest described a similar experience, though his was accompanied by movement elsewhere in the cabin. The whispers reached across the room, repeating thoughts he had never spoken aloud. The weight settled near him as he tried to sit up. He felt the pressure of presence pressing gently on the mattress, then slowly lifting as though the figure rose and faded into shadows. By dawn, the cabin returned to silence, ordinary again, leaving only memory of the encounter. Locals speak quietly of Dark Hollow Cabin. Some say it carries the energy of past inhabitants. Impressions of lives lived here etched into wood and stone. Others believe the mountain spirits themselves are drawn to the place, taking form at night to remind visitors of things they dare not share. The whispers are not malicious. They are intimate, personal, sometimes instructive, sometimes simply acknowledging the presence of another intelligence. Guests often report that the experience is gradual. A faint chill first. A shadow too dark to be explained by candlelight. Then whispers, so soft they might be imagined, but always accurate, always personal. The pressure follows, a weight that is felt more than seen. It sits beside the visitor, breathing them in, sharing space without taking life. The cabin holds the boundary, letting the experience happen but never allowing harm. One winter couple stayed multiple nights. They found themselves speaking less to each other, more attentive to the subtle changes in room, floor, and air. Footsteps would circle softly, whispers drifted down halls, and the weight appeared beside them as they lay awake at night. They never saw a figure, never heard a voice clearly, yet both felt its presence. At dawn, sunlight returned the cabin to ordinary calm, yet the memory persisted, etched into their consciousness. Even in daylight, the cabin holds a quiet power. Shadows linger in corners, floorboards groan softly under natural settling. And the fireplace seems warmer than the air around it. Visitors are drawn to linger, exploring spaces that may hold echoes of the night. The phenomenon is not constant, not guaranteed, but always possible, waiting for the right time when night falls and the cabin draws close. Dark Hollow Cabin is a place where the boundary between the living and the unseen is thin. Where walls listen, floors remember. And the air holds attention. Guests leave carrying more than the experience of rustic beauty and solitude. They carry memory, the sense of presence. And the whispered recognition of their own hidden truths. Those who enter after dark should walk carefully. Breathe slowly, and be ready to feel the subtle, intimate nature of the cabin. Listen for whispers that speak not to ears but to the mind. Sense the weight that may settle beside you, gentle yet undeniable. Watch shadows stretch and move without explanation. And remember that even as dawn returns sunlight to floorboards and furniture, the memory of presence lingers. Dark Hollow Cabin endures, timeless, patient, alive with the echoes of thought and observation. Floors may creak without footsteps. Chairs may shift without touch. Blankets may tug across beds with no human hand. And the unseen visitor waits quietly, intimate, perceptive, ever near. Every guest leaves changed, carrying a piece of that silent, weighty awareness with them. Long after the forest swallows the cabin back into quiet once again. Bear Creek Cabin rests deep in the crested Butte wilderness, surrounded by dense pine forests and snow-draped slopes. During the day, sunlight sparkles on frosted branches, and the quiet is broken only by the distant call of birds or the soft rush of a mountain stream. The cabin itself is sturdy, made of logs darkened by time and weather. Smoke curls lazily from its chimney, suggesting warmth and life inside. By day, it seems peaceful, even welcoming, a retreat from the vast wilderness. But at night, the world around Bear Creek Cabin changes, and the line between the living and the unseen blurs. Visitors have reported unusual markings in the snow around the cabin. Tracks appear seemingly overnight, large paw prints leading directly to the door. Curiously, no bears live in the area anymore. The tracks emerge from deep forest, cross frozen streams, and stop abruptly at the cabina's doorstep. They are precise, deliberate, too exact to be natural wanderings of wild animals. Footsteps of any human or animal are absent between trees, leaving only the evidence of the paw prints as they lead to the structure itself. Some who approach the cabin at night notice more than footprints. Scratches appear on the wooden doors and walls, as if claws pressed firmly against the logs. They run deep enough to be visible even under moonlight. Yet no bear is ever found nearby. The forest remains quiet. No growls echo through the trees. The scratches vanish by morning, leaving only the faint smell of pine. And the memory of movement. It is as if something is drawn to the cabin after dark, compelled to mark its presence without intending harm. One winter evening, a hiker staying overnight in the cabin awoke to a strange sensation. The wind was still, the world silent under a thick layer of snow. Outside, he noticed fresh paw prints leading from the forest directly to the cabin. His curiosity and unease grew when he saw scratches etched deep into the cabin door, fresh and dark against the pale wood. He stepped outside cautiously, calling softly, expecting perhaps a wandering bear, yet only silence answered. The footprints ended at the steps. No sound of retreat. Only the imprint of presence, undeniable and inexplicable. Another guest described a similar encounter. They had spent the day skiing along the mountainside, returning to the cabin as dusk settled. The forest glowed in shades of orange and pink from the sinking sun. When night fell, they noticed tracks forming anew in the fresh snow. The paw prints seemed larger than any bear they had ever seen, spaced with deliberate pace, leading toward the cabin. As they approached the door, scratches appeared on the log panels, shallow at first, then deeper as if the unseen claws pressed repeatedly. The guest felt a chill that had nothing to do with winter air. Stepping closer, they reported a weight in the stillness, a presence that watched from the surrounding darkness. No bear appeared, yet the evidence of Itza or something else's movement remained undeniable. Locals whisper of the cabin's history. Some say it was built on land once frequented by large bears. The last of their kind disappearing decades ago. The forest may remember them. The traces of their former presence lingering in the snow and trees. Others believe the cabin itself calls to whatever roams the wilderness at night. A beacon for creatures bound by memory, instinct, or spirit. There is no malice, only a draw toward the structure. A ritual that repeats silently through winters past and present. Imagine standing there yourself. The night air is sharp and cold, carrying the scent of pine and frost. Snow crunches beneath your boots as you move toward the cabin, your breath visible in dim moonlight. You notice tracks emerging from the trees, paws deep in fresh snow, leading directly to the door. The forest is quiet, so quiet that each snap of a branch underfoot echoes unnaturally. You step closer to the log door. Scratches mar the surface, deep and dark. The wood feels cold, almost alive beneath your hand. You call softly, perhaps half expecting a response. Nothing moves, yet the presence feels near, lingering just beyond the reach of your senses. The cabin seems to breathe in the night. Shadows stretch long across the snow, following the slope of the roof and the contours of the logs. Each paw print is precise, deliberate, telling a story of movement that cannot be explained. Each scratch is a reminder that the wilderness remembers, that some presence remains connected to the cabin long after living creatures have left. The forest holds its breath, and you feel the weight of history, instinct, and something beyond comprehension pressing gently against the night. Bear Creek Cabin remains a quiet refuge during the day, yet it transforms under the cover of darkness. Tracks form, scratches appear, and a presence seems to roam around the structure without revealing itself. Those who witness it leave with memory of the tracks, the cold pressing air, and the sense that something watches from the trees, following rituals written long before their arrival. There is no threat, only mystery and respect. In the stillness of a winter night, when snow falls softly and the forest is silent. Bear tracks lead to the cabin once more. Scratches appear on doors where claws pressed. The world is empty, yet alive with presence. Footsteps are invisible. Shadows are deep. And if you stand quietly, you may feel the pull of something that remembers. Something that walks, unseen, through the night at Bear Creek Cabin, a connection between wilderness, memory, and enduring mystery. Pine Shadow Cabin sits tucked into the forests above Keystone, Colorado, surrounded by towering pines that filter sunlight during the day and create endless shadow patterns at dusk. By daylight, the cabin feels welcoming, rustic timber walls glowing warm against the mountain sun, and smoke drifting from its chimney curling into crisp air. Hikers and skiers often pause here for rest, drawn to the smell of wood smoke, pine, and earth, yet night transforms this place into something altogether different. Shadows take center stage after dark. Guests report that shadows stretch across the cabin floor unnaturally, bending and twisting in ways impossible for ordinary light to produce. When a single lamp or candle is lit, shadows lengthen and shift, sometimes far longer than the objects casting them. They do not remain still. Visitors describe watching shadows detach from furniture or walls, moving independently, stretching across the floor, tracing paths no one walks. Often they seem to mimic gestures, but with delay, as though following a memory rather than a presence. One couple staying for the weekend noticed the effect first in the living room. The fire flickered low in the hearth, casting long shadows across the wooden floor. As the woman reached for a cup, she noticed her shadow lagging slightly behind her movements. She paused, watching, and the shadow continued its motion independently, hands lifting a moment after hers. Her companion, observing across the room, saw his own shadow drift toward the window before his body moved, as if curious about the night beyond. Both froze, uncertain what to believe, but unable to ignore what they saw. Some visitors report more unsettling interactions. Shadows sometimes appear to reach out toward them, arms stretching thin across floor or wall as if attempting contact. Many describe a tingling sensation when this occurs, a brush of cold along the skin without any wind or air movement. Some have stepped back instinctively, their hearts racing, while shadows slowly retract as if satisfied with attention or curiosity. No one has reported injury, but the experience leaves an impression that is difficult to shake. Another guest recounted an experience at midnight. Alone in the cabin after a long day on the trails, he lit a small lantern and moved to the kitchen. The shadows cast by cupboard corners and hanging pans shifted strangely, stretching along floorboards and walls. When he lifted his hand to pour water, his shadow rose behind him, elongated and curling toward the center of the room, yet not perfectly aligned with his motion. He held still, watching as the shadow extended, almost reaching his arm before pausing and collapsing slowly back into place. A sense of observation and awareness filled the room, as though the cabin itself had eyes in the darkness. The phenomenon is not limited to any single room. Guests have observed shadows climbing stair rails, slithering along ceilings, or forming shapes around furniture that remain motionless during the day. Sometimes shadows appear to follow visitors when they move from room to room, responding with subtle delay, tracing every step. When light is extinguished, the patterns vanish almost instantly, leaving only the memory of movement and the lingering sensation of being watched. Fog and snow outside amplify the experience. On nights when mist rolls down from peaks, shadows appear darker and more pronounced, moving as though drawn by unseen currents of air or memory. Visitors often report the sensation of unseen hands brushing past shoulders or fingertips, as though shadows are testing boundaries. The effect is subtle, never aggressive, but unmistakable. Pine Shadow Cabin becomes a place alive with presence, a dialogue between light, form, and memory preserved in timber and pine. Imagine standing in the cabin late at night. Moonlight filters through tall windows, casting silver lines across polished floorboards. Every object projects long, distorted silhouettes. A chair casts a shadow that rises and bends, reaching as though to touch your ankle. You hold your breath. The space feels alive, responsive, aware. Every movement is echoed in delay, every shift observed by forms made purely of shadow. Guests learn quickly to respect the rhythm of the cabin. Walk slowly, notice the patterns of light and dark. Remain calm when shadows move unexpectedly. The experience is not dangerous, but it is unnerving. revealing a layer of presence beyond ordinary perception. The shadows act as guardians of memory, recording the lives and motions of visitors long after they leave. Reminding all who enter that pine shadow cabin is more than wood and stone. It is a space where light and darkness converse, where the echoes of human form continue to play out in silence. By morning, shadows return to normal, sunlight smoothing distortions and restoring order. Timber floors gleam in natural light. Chairs, tables, and walls appear solid and motionless. Yet guests who stayed through the night remember the lagging movements, the reaching shapes, the sensation of being observed. They leave with awareness that some places, when night falls, hold life that is neither human nor entirely natural. Pine Shadow Cabin remains a testament to the strange interplay of light, shadow. Shadows stretch, move, and sometimes reach, creating an environment alive with subtle communication. The cabin teaches patience and attention, a reminder that what we see in darkness may not follow ordinary rules. Those who enter after sunset are never alone. Shadows stretch, linger, and observe. They carry the history of the cabin and respond to the presence of the living in quiet, mesmerizing ways. The mountains of Leadville rise sharply against the cold night sky, their peaks disappearing into a thick, rolling fog that seems to embrace the land. Perched on one of these slopes is Summit View Cabin, a solitary structure surrounded by an ever-present mist. Each night, the fog thickens, curling around the cabin like a living thing, muffling sound and bending the familiar shapes of the world into something strange and unfamiliar. Visitors often arrive during the late afternoon, expecting quiet solitude and a view that stretches for miles. The cabin itself is simple, sturdy, and welcoming in the daylight. Windows frame the distant peaks, and the air carries the scent of pine and mountain stone. Yet as the sun dips below the horizon, the atmosphere shifts. The fog rolls in with deliberate patience, shrouding the cabin in gray. And the stillness becomes heavier, laden with a presence that is felt rather than seen. Those who have stayed overnight describe an unsettling sensation as darkness falls. Inside the cabin, there is no sound beyond the occasional creak of wood and the distant howl of wind through the mountains. Yet the feeling of being watched grows almost immediately. Visitors report a sense of awareness, as if an invisible presence is moving alongside them, observing their every step, yet never revealing itself. A tall, pale figure is said to wander silently through the rooms. Descriptions vary, but consistently, it is noted for its height, its almost spectral paleness. And the way it glides without making a sound. Those who have glimpsed it claim it moves with a slow, deliberate grace. Appearing in corners or at the edge of vision before vanishing as quickly as it arrived. It does not interact with the living, yet its presence is undeniable. Leaving behind a lingering chill and a deep impression of something otherworldly. One night, a couple arrived at the cabin, eager to escape the bustle of city life. They unpacked their bags, lit a small fire, and admired the view from the large front windows. As darkness fell, the fog began to thicken, rolling across the mountains in waves of gray. They felt a sudden unease, a sensation that the cabin itself had become more alive than before. As they explored the main room, footsteps seemed to echo softly around them, though no one else was present. A shadow stretched across the floor, long and distorted, disappearing when they turned toward it. In the kitchen, the faint outline of a figure appeared in their peripheral vision. When they looked directly, the space was empty. Yet the sense of observation remained. Each room felt like it held its own secret. A quiet tension that whispered at the edge of perception. Over time, stories from other guests have painted a consistent picture. Those who spend the night report the sensation of being followed by an unseen presence. Doors are found slightly ajar, objects subtly shifted, and the faint sound of movement echoing through empty hallways. The tall figure is rarely seen directly, but its presence is described as persistent and patient, a silent observer of all who enter Summit View Cabin. Local lore suggests that the cabin has always been tied to the fog, as if it is a magnet for the strange and inexplicable. The pale figure, according to these tales, has existed as long as the cabin itself, wandering the rooms without cause or end. Residents of Leadville tell visitors to respect the cabin, to move quietly and without haste, acknowledging that it is a place where the ordinary rules of time and space seem to bend under the weight of something unseen. One evening, a small group of friends stayed overnight, their curiosity outweighing the unease that settled in with the mist. They explored the cabin, checking each room with a flashlight. Every corner seemed to shift when unobserved, the shadows bending unnaturally under the dim light. They felt eyes on them, a constant awareness that left them both captivated and unnerved. When one friend paused near the fireplace, they saw the faint outline of the figure standing near the far window. It did not move or speak, yet the room felt colder, and the air seemed to thrum with quiet energy. Moments later, it was gone, leaving the friends questioning whether they had truly seen it or imagined the presence altogether. The fog outside remained thick, obscuring the mountains and the cabina's immediate surroundings. Inside, the cabin maintained its deceptive normalcy, every detail in place. Yet the unseen watcher persisted, patient and silent, a constant in the otherwise shifting reality of nightfall. Morning would eventually arrive, and the fog would lift, revealing the crisp clarity of mountain air and the jagged peaks in the distance. The cabin returned to its calm, welcoming state, though the memory of the night remained with its visitors. Those who had experienced the presence of the pale figure often leave with a mixture of awe and unease, unable to fully explain what they encountered. Summit View Cabin endures as a quiet sentinel in the mountains of Leadville, its walls holding the stories of all who have passed through. The fog continues to gather nightly, a shroud of mystery and uncertainty, while the pale figure wanders silently within. It is a place where the ordinary meets the extraordinary, where shadows move in ways that defy explanation, and where the air is thick with the unspoken presence of something otherworldly. Every night, the fog rolls in, and the tall figure resumes its silent vigil. Visitors come and go, but the cabin remains, patient and watchful, offering both shelter and an encounter with the inexplicable. Summit View Cabin is a place of quiet mystery, and a reminder that even in the stillness of the mountains, waiting for those who step inside to notice. And so, our journey through the haunted mountain cabins of Colorado ends, or perhaps it continues with you. 20 cabins where footsteps echo without feet, where shadows walk freely, where whispers crawl across walls, and spirits linger in the chill of pine forests. If you ever visit a Colorado mountain cabin alone at night, remember, the wood remembers every visitor, the wind carries whispers, and sometimes someone else is watching. Thank you for walking with me tonight. May your nights be warm, your doors locked, and your dreams free of cold fingers brushing your skin. And so, the darkness closes in. Before you go, tell me in the comments. Which cabin terrified you the most? And would you dare spend a night there with nothing but a lantern? Sleep safely, dear listener. If the shadows allow.